Hello and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 9th conference in a monthly series of events, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to have many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above that's happening in crypto. So we've had a themed event every month, basically from What the Fi is DeFi, Tales from the Crypto during Halloween, Happy Hodl Days during the holiday season, NFTs that just passed, and now we're on to a Game of Chains Battle for the Throne. We've been talking to a lot of layer ones, base layers, layer twos, and not only them, but everybody in their ecosystem to talk about the pros and cons of the chain that they chose, the decisions, and everything in between. So I'll be your host today, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator, or providing development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within our university program. Our main objective and goals are pretty simple and straightforward. It's increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. So today we have an exciting panel brought to you by our partners and friends over at Icon. They've been, chugging ahead for quite a few years now. We've been able to bring in some leaders in their community and ecosystem, which I have for you today. So I'll go ahead and introduce yourself. Galen, we'll start with you. How you doing today? Thanks for joining.
Pretty good. I'm the CTO at MouseBelt. I've been building some applications on all sorts of blockchains, but I built one recently on Icon and have a few other team members here today that I've worked with on that.
Awesome. Dan, go ahead and kick it off. Thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. My name's Dan Brehmer, and I am calling myself the Chief Science Officer at ICONOsphere. My background is science. I love science. I approach everything from a science perspective. So
awesome.
Happy to be here.
Great. Lisa P, thanks for joining. Go ahead and quick little intro.
Hey, thanks for having us. So I'm a content designer. I work for Paradigm. So we're a design company that's just in the blockchain space, mostly focused on Icon.
And I'm Pete, and I just do design for Paradigm, but Lisa pretty much leads the show.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys for joining. We've been part of the Icon community for quite some time. We're a P-Rep, investors. We've built, obviously, a collaborator on Balance Network as well, and also contributed to a lot of the early portfolio projects over at ICX Station, which has been great, which kind of led the way into a lot of relationships, and we're very fortunate. So I'll go ahead and kick this off real quick. Dan, I'll start with you. When did you begin your collaboration with the foundation, the Icon Foundation, and what does this entail? And this, I'm assuming, is with the team that you're working with now.
Yeah, actually, that dates back to the fall of 2017. I'd been collaborating a little bit with BJ and Kumar, who are the ones who lead iBriz, and BJ was putting on a hackathon in Santa Clara. A data science hackathon involving Emirates Airlines and JetBlue, a lot of data. And at the time, Min Kim was leading a project that was data science oriented, Da Vinci Labs. And so we invited him to participate and showcase his software. And we'd met Min maybe a few months before that or something, and he participated, and we've just sort of stayed in the mix since then and become more and more involved. When the Icon testnet launched, we built some early demo applications and NFT applications, and just continually gotten more and more involved because the Icon team is such a good team. So many people with really high integrity there. So we really like what they're doing.
Nice. And how about you, Lisa Pete? How did you guys, get involved with Icon and the foundation and, start contributing?
So, the short version is, in the end of 2019, we presented them with a problem and a solution to that problem, and their response was to give us more problems. And so here we are solving problems. That's a pretty much in a nutshell. Do you have any?
Yeah, I guess for us, the journey in Icon started from the ICO. We were ICO investors, and then as more functionality came out and the P-Rep abilities were introduced, we decided that there was a niche there for design skills. So we decided that we would put our efforts into helping to design the Icon ecosystem. And started out with a little bit of criticism for the Icon X wallet, which at the time was the only app that you could use within Icon. And then it just kind of expanded from there. Once we posted that, we had Scott talk to us about balance, and then we just got more and more involved from that point onwards.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I think everybody has a unique and interesting story how they either got involved, what rabbit hole they went down, or what sparked their interest. So we had like kind of this DeFi summer last year, really kind of kicked it into gear. Open finance, whatever, however people want to perceive it or think about it. That's been around for quite some time, but ultimately last summer is really when it kicked off. Now, I know you guys have all been working on a specific project as of late, together, Balanced Network, and we can touch on that in a little bit. But before we get into there, like, what are some of the challenges you think, Dan, from a DeFi perspective, in terms of, you do a lot of smart contracts? Have we evolved in terms of risk and vulnerabilities? Have we gone better, worse? Like, how do you see the space coming around over the last, 12 months or so?
As far as vulnerabilities go,
yeah, I mean, just on the tech side, as far as development goes, like, well, what have you seen? What has been your part? I guess maybe even providing support for the Balanced Network.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenge getting involved in Icon, for example, in that there's not as much support for developers as there is within the Ethereum ecosystem. So a lot of that is being built out, a lot of tutorials and so forth. We've tried to make a contribution in that direction with what we call our Open Dev Icon initiative, which is intended to be something like Open Zeppelin in order to provide more audited, tried and reliable code for developers to just piece together. So in Icon, a lot of that is ongoing, putting together, building all these pieces so that the innovation can be much more rapid and reliable. More audits going on. The foundation is they have an audit grant program, so they'll pay for audits for promising projects.
Nice. And Galen, what are your thoughts there in terms of trying to onboard more developers, I guess, on this specific blockchain, just in general? You've developed on many chains across the board, various products and solutions and dApps. How important is it for these types of resources that Dan's working on, to kind of reach, Web 2.0 devs, Web 3.0 devs, to really just come in and start building and innovating?
Absolutely, it's very important. So Icon, the score system on Icon is really nice in that it's programming, like Python is a programming language that's been around for a really long time compared to Solidity. It's got a lot more examples, a lot more documentation out there. However, Python smart contract code has been around a relatively short time, and there isn't like this thing like Open Zeppelin with like well audited smart contracts where I can just deploy an Open Zeppelin contract on Ethereum and I know it just works. And there's many examples of smart contracts that have made it through 4 levels of audit. So it's just, I think it'll probably take a little bit of time. And even after the move to Java contracts on Icon, probably a little bit more time then. But I think it's a better ecosystem. There's just not quite enough support yet. But I think it has the promise to be way better than the current system.
And we've lost you, Adam.
Yep. I'm here. I was on mute. So like, I kind of went in this order a little bit, right? Kind of asking Dan from a technical standpoint, trying to confirm with how Galen thinks on, how do we streamline devs to continue to build? You guys are like working on something different, and you guys contribute in a different way, coming from like UI, UX, and kind of the design features. Can you talk about like your experience on what were some of the challenges and how you're tackling that, I guess, from a DeFi perspective or usability standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing really to emulate from, which provided its own set of problems. Usually you've got some sort of base that you can iterate from to make it a little bit better, but I find in this situation, everything was just incredibly verbose. I think technology in its early phases is usually quite verbose, and they say more than what the user really wants to hear. The user just wants to do what they need to do and then get out, and they'll carry on living their lives as per normal. Whereas I feel like a lot of businesses typically force more onto the user than what they typically want.
Yeah, and for DeFi in general, especially when we were looking into balance in the early phases, it was very verbose, and even trying to, I think we were looking at Maker and just trying to go through the process of setting up to be able to borrow from there. And it was very complex. You had to choose which kind of contract you wanted, and there was just a lot of complexity that your average user wouldn't be able to understand, which means that it's preventing a lot of adoption because it's too difficult. So
I mean, yeah, to the user, the interface is the product, and so if they can't use the interface, they can't use the product. So that we were very careful in making sure that we tested right throughout the development of Balance to make sure that people could use it. Our target market was able to understand the concepts that we'd put forwards, and we'd done a lot of onboarding as well. Just even with the prototype being out for so long, a lot of the users were understanding a lot of the concepts that we'd put forwards.
Yeah, but yeah, so basically our biggest challenge was just trying to define the right way of showing people the information and helping them to make the right choices, giving them the math basically so they don't have to do it themselves, and just, yeah, making it as direct for people as possible. But when we started, there wasn't a lot we could really gauge from. Now I think there is a bit more, but we just haven't had time to go through all of the various DeFi platforms, but there are so many now.
No, yeah, definitely. I know at the beginning of kind of the Balance project, that was one of the core focuses really was, usability, onboarding users and trying to make it seamless as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of hurdles right now in blockchain in general and kind of crypto, right, to kind of reach those, I don't know, the next billion. Would you say we're kind of on the right path still to kind of reach the masses and have our parents and other individuals that are not tech savvy? Like, are we on the right path to getting them on board? And this could be outside of DeFi as well. This is just kind of usability as far as how crypto goes and how we use it now. Do you see us going in the right direction?
I think so. Getting back to it, most technology in its early phases is overly verbose. I've used this example before, but I think of computer boot screens where they used to have a whole screen of text and it would say floppy drives and all this initialization, whereas now we just have a progress bar, and it would be kind of weird to see any of the text on, when you're turning on your phone, all these like initializations. Because what people realize is that they just didn't care. We don't care about seeing all of the complexity that's going on behind the scenes. We just wanted to know that the computer's starting. And I think blockchain's kind of in that space. We're still in the screens of text phase where it's showing you all the initializations, but it's just part of any new technology adoption cycle, is we have to go through all those phases to realize what users do want and what they don't want.
But as far as getting everyone else to adopt it, I would say we're getting closer to being able to get the next wave of people. Some of the other projects we're working on as well, just to be able to help with the onboarding into crypto. Like we've got this widget that we'll launch soon called Bridge, which basically allows people to sign into a crypto app using only their email address, and they can buy crypto with US dollars. So it will allow people to be able to onboard really easily into some of our projects, so they can start using DeFi. So one project we're going to have it natively integrated into, as well as Balance, will be our other DeFi project which is going to really allow the next wave of people. Like I'm planning to get my parents into it because they can still use it like they're using US dollars basically. So it's going to be a lot easier and a lot less complex than if we were to try to get them in the current environment. But we're getting very close, I think.
I'm going to go back around. Actually, I'm going to go Galen and then Dan. I'm going to go in this circle, but Galen first. We're talking about kind of the complexities, or I'm sorry. We're talking about like the UI UX usability of like some of these dApps, and I guess for the everyday person, they're not too familiar. Or why is it so challenging? I guess from a technical aspect, is it because this is all brand new? Is it because we have to build it from scratch? there was no focus on it before, and now it is. From a technical standpoint, like how challenging, or is it just kind of timing of how the infrastructure and the toolings come about? From a technical perspective, like how, if I wasn't in crypto, like why is it so hard to kind of implement some of these onboarding use cases and flows?
I guess some ways you're doing something different than you're doing on these other applications. Like if it's a bank, or say you're just trading currencies on like a Forex or something, you're probably logging in with your email and password. All of your money is held on this system, and then you're just they're managing the trades on some internal order matching engine. With one of these, you would have to put on the user the ability to sign their own requests. So maybe the login flow is going to be a little different in that aspect. And then some things in the crypto ecosystem users have preferred AMM style exchanges to traditional like matching engine based exchanges or traditional order book based exchanges. These are actually really complex when you think about it, where the user is sort of making a bet that the price will not move up or down, and there'll be a lot of volume in a small price band. So I don't know if they always know what they're getting into when they provide liquidity on them, but it's just a different flow that you have to develop around what users of the DeFi apps prefer. And we actually had to, when we were working on balance, we had to throw away our initial version of the DEX. It was an order book DEX. It was a lot closer to what users would be used to in like just trading currencies on a Forex. And we started from scratch and made an AMM.
So would you say that it's just more of building it as opposed to technical kind of challenges that are causing a stunt of, UI, UX that we continue to hear about?
There are some technical challenges if you want to provide users a good experience. Like there's so much overhead from a blockchain. Like traditional order matching engines, like if you look at what people are trading stocks on, their orders are measured in microseconds, how fast they can settle an order, nanoseconds maybe. But in a blockchain system, you measure it in seconds. So these are like a million times slower than other systems. So sometimes how users trade changes because of that.
Interesting. And how about you, Dan? I think the question that I posed really was, I kind of went from the Paradigm team to Galen in terms of, UI, UX design to kind of some of the technical challenges and hurdles in terms of usability. What are you seeing from your perspective, maybe from your current role, and how do we streamline some of the design issues or some of the technical challenges and kind of, getting that extra layer out to the normal retailer that doesn't have to worry about some of these things that they're traditionally used to?
Yeah, so I actually put a very high priority on quality user design, user interface design. I actually worked for a couple of years, quite a while ago, doing UX design and testing. So I really value what Pete and Lisa do. They do such great work, make such a difference. But like they mentioned, the users, they really see the user interface as the product often, to such an extent that we had this prototype and people were seeing it, they're like, oh, it's done, just turn it on, let's use it. But yeah, there's a little more to it than that. So the point I want to make with regard to the work we're doing now is, as Pete and Lisa have mentioned, that we're also working on this bridge pay product, which will dramatically smooth out, reduce the friction for normal people using blockchain, getting their fiat funds onto the blockchain and be able to work with it just like they do regular money. So I'm also looking forward to sharing that with my dad and letting him participate. He's eager to do something with this. And Icon has a lot of different projects like that they're putting the pieces together, building these building blocks. The developers are developers or entrepreneurs even. The focus, I think, of building in blockchain needs to move a little bit from the low-level technology to allowing entrepreneurs to put together building blocks to build real products. and so that's the sort of thing that ICON's working on that I think is going to result in a dramatic acceleration of innovation in the space. And then that also leads me to one other point I wanted to make with regard to innovation and how blockchain in general is a tremendously innovative and creative space that as a scientist and an entrepreneur, we make experiments, and not everyone understands what an experiment is scientifically. It's where you have a hypothesis about what the outcome of some action will be. You take the action, and when the hypothesis you start with is clearly defined, then you can measure the results and compare them to your hypothesis, and you learn something. And that's partly why this process of innovation can take so much time. You've got to go through these iterations of hypothesis, action, results, compare, and then iterate. So, but we're really making solid progress there. And I've really enjoyed, as I see it, balanced DAO and a lot of these business models that we're experimenting with. They are experiments. They're large experiments, small experiments, and we're learning tremendously rapidly. And that's what's really exciting about it.
Has anything, to stay on that, like, has anything surprised you? Talking, coming from the science aspect, going through the evolution of blockchain technology, infrastructure, tooling, what's available, the resources. It seems like you enjoy the process. Are you surprised or not surprised? Like, what excites you while you're working on these experiments?
Yeah, I've been surprised and pleased with how effective it's been, really. Just I've had sort of a vision for a long time of wanting to return control to us individuals, sort of take back control from the big companies that have so successfully influenced us for so many years. And this DAO business structure really provides a means to do that. So it really, and ICON, as I said before, I think the folks who are leading ICON have tremendous integrity, and they're working really hard to create this as a value to share with everyone. They're really intent on decentralizing ICON as a whole, and then building decentralized products that really return the value to the people who are using the products.
Awesome. And I'll continue to stay on that topic as well. Lisa, Pete, like, to what degree do you guys fall on the decentralized versus centralized aspect, right? At one point, everything needed to be decentralized. And maybe, some people are like, oh, well, maybe not, obviously everything needs to be decentralized. Where do you guys fall on that spectrum, since you guys are working on decentralized products? Dan kind of brought up, taking the ownership back in control, us giving up a lot of our data information to FANG, right? Like your Facebooks, your Apples, your Googles, the list goes on. Where do you guys fall on that decentralized? To what degree do you guys fall on that spectrum?
It's kind of hard, because before I came into ICON, the last place I was working with was a large institution, and they had a decentralized marketing model, which meant that someone in the physics department would change the brand slightly to suit themselves, whereas the business school would be doing their own sort of thing. And it made the brand really, really fragmented, and no one really wanted to represent it. And so during my time there, we centralized the marketing and branding, and it made everything better. Everything looked a lot more polished. It was thought out. And so from a design perspective, decentralization is kind of makes me nervous. But from where I see the industry heading, we decentralization is the end goal in terms of ownership over this product. So it's just trying to find a balance between those two kind of extremes.
Just to maintain the quality is our highest priority as designers. So trying to prevent that from being watered down by just because we decided to decentralize it is our biggest concern. So decentralization is good, but not to the point where it's going to affect the quality of what you're putting forward, basically.
I think that's important to point out. Like, at one point people were building just decentralized anything, right? And it seems like obviously over time we're figuring out, the experiments as Dan brought up before, like you start to understand that it's product market fit, really. Like you need to make sure that what you're trying to build is gonna, is meeting a need, a demand, providing a solution. And so what I'm hearing from you, and I've heard this kind of obviously from industry leaders and projects, is like they don't really think about it too much. They just think about how can I make this useful, provide utility and add value to the end user, right? And I think there's a lot of people watching this, gonna watch this panel and try to think like, all right, let's build something decentralized. But it's kind of like you shouldn't be thinking like that. You should think about what's the need, what's the problem, here's the solution, and I guess like how does that fit into blockchain, right? Do you even need blockchain? Like you don't need blockchain, right? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think at some point the blockchain industry is going to realize that the competition isn't other people in the blockchain industry. It's what people are already using, and that's where we need to be focusing our effort.
Totally.
If we compete, with, say, you're creating a decentralized social platform, if you can't compete with Facebook, then you're not a consideration. That's your goal. And so we have to be better than the existing, apps and things like that. We have to be much better.
Totally. And I feel like even especially in crypto blockchain, like there's no room for error on that side. Like if you're not like beating out like, or exceeding kind of what the user is used to in the traditional web 2.0, you're going to have a tough time, or you better change your narrative, your messaging to say I'm not as fast as Facebook, but if you want this, or whatever the case is. Hey, Galen, to bring you back into this, what, we're talking about like UI, UX design, decentralization. How important, and I know Icon is actually working on some things, but in general, like, and we'll get everybody's thoughts here. How important is interoperability? Like providing this opportunity to go cross-chain. At one point, it was very like, tribalism, like this chain only. And obviously, we kind of came up with this concept for this theme of Game of Chains Battle for the Throne because that's the way it was. But it seems like over the last year or so, people have really come to realize like, hey, I need, and you brought up competition a little bit, Pete. That's more on the traditional side, but even internally, trying to like work with everybody to make sure that I guess the end user, is obviously happy. So my question, Galen, is like, how important is interoperability between chains, and like, are you a big fan of that?
I think it's absolutely important. I mean, I think you could find analogies even in traditional marketplaces where you have applications that allow you to remit money in another currency more easily, and people start to hire more remote workers with that. If you drop down the barriers for interoperating from one currency to another, you can increase transactional volume, which is kind of cool. So I think with blockchain, that would absolutely be true as well. If there are good bridges that work well to bring money from one chain to another, allow people to trade them, spend assets, do whatever they want to do, I think applications will absolutely leverage that.
And how about you, Dan? Any thoughts kind of on chains being interoperable, bridges, being able to maneuver assets seamlessly, and I guess, to your background a little bit in terms of, the end user, is this kind of beneficial? Is this a good thing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, we're sort of in a process of transferring a lot of traditional finance right now from, traditional finance to the blockchain. That's only just at the very beginning, but there's a huge amount of inefficiency in traditional finance that on the blockchain, you can transact much more rapidly. You can have it defined in code. It's reliable. You can have much smaller transactions, many small transactions. It's auditable. It's open. All of this stuff. It not only does it have the potential to speed up traditional financial architecture and so forth, but it's going to enable new architectures. And to what you mentioned about interoperability, that's one of the core things of ICON, and coming with ICON 2.0, the BTP is going to allow very seamless communication between chains. And ICON has an idea of each blockchain being sort of like an independent nation on which businesses will run. So ICON calls itself the ICON Republic. It's a nation, it'll contain some businesses, and you want to be able to seamlessly communicate across borders, send value across borders to businesses on other chains. So I think we're getting really close. I mean, I don't know how much has been announced. I think a fair amount has been announced that a bunch of these bridges are going to be released with ICON 2.0. So we're going to, developers are going to be able to build across those bridges right away.
Galen, does this produce any risk of, we've talked about like building bridges and it's a great thing. Everybody wants to build a bridge with, X chain, X, Y, and Z chain. Like, are there any risks to just building bridges? Like just to a chain because of, I don't know, demand? Or like, is it super important to understand like the fundamental properties of building a bridge from, let's just say, ICON to another chain that keeps the assets, I don't know, transparent, security, and managing some of those vulnerabilities?
So, some of the interesting properties of a blockchain are that they're all on this distributed database with certain properties. Every transaction on this follows the same rules. That any smart contract on that chain or all state is consistent across that chain. So when you build a bridge, you lose that property. And when assets enter or leave through the bridge, you have to enforce it at that time. So I guess if a bridge is built incorrectly, you might think you've created or lost money on another chain when you haven't. So consistency is definitely got to be enforced. I guess a poorly built bridge, you have some opportunities for a security vulnerability, and it will take a little bit longer than just moving your asset around on that chain. So there are definitely some things to watch out for when you build them, but I think they are good overall.
You're muted, Adam.
It's a little delayed on the red lights. I can't tell. No, I know ICON is is leveraging kind of BTP across various big name protocols, which is great. And that's kind of the reason why I asked that question. We probably have a few minutes here still. Parent9 team, like we talked about DeFi. Are there any other applications that you see blockchain good for? What kind of things that you notice or that you see as trending? And I've asked all these questions because we have a lot of people tuning in that are students, that are developers, we try to make this content, broad-based, right, to a lot of the masses as much as possible for them to understand like what we've all been working on. Like it's definitely complicated a little bit on the back end, but ultimately a lot of the concepts they're already using, right, in the traditional world, whether that's social media, finance, supply chain, the list goes on. What kind of excites you in the blockchain space as you see this technology, depending on the use case? Is there anything that you guys are looking out for, excited about?
I think that the DAO aspect is pretty interesting. Being able to get funding for it's kind of like, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but it feels to me like another version of an ICO, that you can get funding right from the very start with people that believe in your idea. I don't know what the end goal of, or the end picture of DAOs look like, but I think they're quite interesting that I'd like to explore more about.
Yeah, in addition to that, I guess just it's really just going to be about trying to put kind of existing technology into blockchain. So like there's this other app that we were looking to do that's not related to finance at all. Basically, it's a photo competition app, would reset every 24 hours. People can upload photos for the day, and it could be time shotted on the blockchain, so they could make an NFT out of it if they wanted. People could vote on it. The people with the most votes could earn some money for their photo each day. So like there are things like that you could kind of translate more into regular things. So it'll be kind of like a way of evolving something like Instagram to have more engagement. So there are things you could do with that. There are things you could do like in the music space as well, to be able to improve the ownership and help with licensing and all of the regular issues that come through the music industry. We actually have a couple of teams within the Icon space that have started working on some technology to help be able to bring more music stuff to Icon. We've had an idea of our own that we would like to push forwards whenever we get the time to do that. So I think it's just going to be about bridging stuff that we already do with technology now, but just using the blockchain to be able to make it more feature rich, I guess, rather than trying to use it to be able to create something that's really new and probably too complicated. Just kind of, yeah, improving what people are already using with better ideas and better technology.
I kind of have some hybrid thoughts. Everything that you just said, like couple things. One, like, is this technology more useful in traditional kind of legacy systems, or is blockchain more of an advanced, innovative solution that we haven't really thought of? Like, nobody thought of Facebook and Uber like in the mid 90s, right, when the internet came out. Right now, we're kind of implementing blockchain technology into legacy, like traditional, I don't know, protocols that we're used to now are functioning like businesses that we use now. So that's kind of cool that you brought up the use cases that you're seeing, and one of the kind of underlying concept there is like really peer-to-peer, right? Like music, peer-to-peer, different applications, like whether it's finance, whether it's music, whether it's art, decentralized or not. I feel like it's the evolution from your Instagram lives, your Facebook lives, to more of like the NFT, right? Like giving back to my fan base, my community. And I feel like blockchain really drives that home. And going back to the DAO, that's kind of an important piece too. Being able to operate a bunch of people to make decisions. Does that show concern though, Pete? Like, can we do that as human beings? I feel like that's actually going back to like the 1700s, like to vote amongst the community, and like it's going to get centralized again. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because when we were talking about DAOs, we're talking about DAO management software. We haven't really seen anything that can create DAOs quite quickly, and there's a lot of stuff that you kind of have to repeat every time you're creating a new DAO. So I think a lot of efficiencies can be gained from just focusing on, how you even create a DAO in the first place. But yeah, once again, I kind of view it as Peter Thiel says, it's not the first movers that have the advantage, it's the last movers. There were social networks before Facebook, there were search engines before Google. And so I'm not interested in the first people. I think they have laid a lot of the groundwork, but it'll be the people that come, in the next couple of years that will be the ones that dominate the industry.
Totally. How about you, Dan? That was kind of a long question that I asked, but my question really is, we've talked about a little about DeFi, we're talking about blockchain. Like, what excites you out, what's blockchain's use case? Bitcoin for gold, peer-to-peer stuff. What have you been following? And I'm assuming, as you're a scientist, you might have experimented with a bunch of things, but regardless, what are you keeping an eye on that you think is interesting?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of my sort of personal missions is to help people take back control of the direction of their own life and so forth. And I've been thinking about ways to do that. And the DAO structure is great for that. There's a lot of challenges. So it is a very experimental area. We're experimenting with different ways to incentivize the activity that'll support the DAO and so forth. But for a specific business application, and I think there are lots of them, that's the other way in which I think we're all engaging in an experiment, is we're trying different business models, designing different incentive systems, designing different DAO management systems. But one that I'm excited about and we have an opportunity to build is you could say ultimately its evolution might turn it into like a decentralized Yelp, sort of location-based services, crowdsourced content, incentivized by the DAO. And I think we've got I'm not going to give any specific details, but I think we have a super target market to start with. So that's the thing I'm most excited about right now.
Nice. No, that's good. That's good. People that are watching are trying to understand, the impact that blockchain technology has, and to what degree, what aspects of their life may be impacted. Ultimately, we're trying to get to a point where they don't even know, right, that they're using blockchain's involved, right? It's part of the stack. It's a tool, to the overall, overall development.
Innovation, for it really to be innovative, there has to be some aspect in which you have an order of magnitude change. Either it's gotten twice as fast or twice as small, or whatever, with the other aspects more or less the same. Otherwise, it's not going to take off. That's sort of a key thing about innovation.
Totally. And I'm gonna end on this last question, actually, and I'll start with the Parrot 9 team here. We just talked about DAOs, the DAO management system. We're talking about decentralization, to what degree, like, we're all part of the ICON community and various other communities, developer communities, whatever it is, right? How important is community to blockchain? Whether that's the stakeholders, whether that's the token holders, whether that's, I don't know, content, providers, like people, there's a lot of challenges and technical hurdles that Ethereum went through, but ultimately they have a pretty big community because of resources, because of, available education. And we just kind of chatted about the DAO at a high level. How important is community to like global growth for like blockchain?
I would say very, very important. I don't have the stats on me, but I did have a tweet a while back about word of mouth marketing, and it's incredibly important. I think, without users, you don't have a business. So, that's everything we do, is trying to make, our community happier, and to try and make things easier for them. That's our main goal, because we know that works. It's worked, everywhere else we've applied these sort of principles. So we just want to focus on the user.
And especially if you're releasing a product for a specific blockchain as well. So like our projects have been just ICON exclusive, which means that community is really important. You need to be able to get users somehow. And by releasing within ICON, we already had like a pretty big user base right from the get-go. Whereas if we were to just launch this, if you were outside of blockchain, like traditionally, if you were going to start a project, you have to really grind to be able to get your first users. But we never had to do that, because they just came naturally, like they were waiting for months to be able to use the product. So having that community there to support us throughout the development process, and to support us like once we've launched and all that, and providing feedback and testing and everything, is just, the community has been so valuable to have already here, ready and wanting to use our products. It's made all the difference.
How about you, Dan? How important is community to blockchain, to to the projects that we're building and implementing? We kind of just heard it from the Parrot 9 team here that, being able to target a community, a blockchain, really, nobody's going to, they may have the best technology, but ultimately you got to have users, you got to have, incentivize the community, the supporters. So what are your thoughts on how important is it for the community to drive global adoption for blockchain?
Yeah, it's critically important. And, I've seen that with Scott. Scott is just a master at dealing with the community, an absolute master, and the work we've done just would have been nowhere nearly as successful without someone like him, who could communicate and just be on top of everything. A community, and ICON has its pluses and minuses. It's got some really passionate, committed, positive people. It's got a couple bad apples. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true, and a couple bad apples can make a lot of noise, so, and how do you manage that? It takes someone who's skilled in that sort of communication for your project to be successful, and not only just in the moment, but Scott has an understanding of how to communicate over a period of time so as to build the momentum and build the excitement. And I think Balanced really benefited from that, being in the awareness of the community for a while. By the time we launched, they were so excited to use it.
Oh, totally.
Hopefully we didn't. I think, they continue, our community continues to be very supportive, and it is a very collaborative thing. So I think we did pretty well. I mean, we had our challenges, and I think for the most part, the community was with us to work through these. And we've worked through everything in as much transparency and good faith as we can. So, yeah, I think it's going well so far.
I used to see those alerts all the time, like Scott just like 24/7 and answering questions. I just seen all the alerts come through. Galen, coming from like a dev perspective, like you've built multiple projects across various chains, like I mentioned earlier. How important is it, for a community, for a strong, robust community for a blockchain platform or network, knowing that obviously you need users, like security purposes? What are your thoughts there, and how critical is community to a blockchain protocol?
I mean, all of these products are open source. You could take them, you could copy the code and create your own you could fork it, create your own copy in like a day. The thing that you can't fork is the community. So the product is really the community. Because I mean, we give away the code for free. We have a permissive license. You could, if you wanted to right now, you could fork pretty much any DeFi protocol and launch your own one, but you would have trouble getting the community to join.
Good point there. That's actually kind of big. You can't. They used to say this all the time, and we've heard it in blockchain, like build it and they will come. Like that necessarily like doesn't happen. You got to have more than that: resources, programs, campaigns, like good people. Ultimately, going back to that DAO structure, like at a high level, what a DAO is a strong community, and that's what's really going to drive value and add value to everybody. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. We've been on for quite some time. Lisa P, where can people learn more about your project? You guys get updates and insights. Where can they get all that information?
Probably the best place would be on our Twitter at Parrot9 Design, or from our website, just parrot9.com.
We are planning to be a bit more vocal in the community. We're just hiring people. So.
Very busy at the moment.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Again, thank you guys for both of you joining. Dan, where can people get more insights about you and your team and kind of what you guys are working on moving forward?
Yeah, there's a website, ICONOsphere.io, and we're ICONOsphere PREP on Twitter. So, and then our guys are all pretty active on Telegram as well. There's the Icon Dev Telegram channel, where our guys are very active answering questions there. And so, awesome. Yeah, please feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. How about yourself, Galen? Where can people find out more about you and get some updates?
Well, you can find out about MouseBelt. I think our Twitter is mouse_belt. I'm GE Danziger on Twitter, or just go to mousebelt.com.
Awesome. So there you have it, folks. Everybody tuning in. Hopefully you're enjoying the conference. We just had a heavy discussion on design, UI, UX, the importance of community, and ultimately, how blockchain may touch, anything that you are working on in the future from a tech stack point of view. And we hope you enjoy this, and we look forward to having you again. Everybody else, we appreciate it, and we hope to have you guys back and see you soon.
Thank you.
See ya.
Take care.